Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. This is your host, Matt Brown. Hope everyone's having an amazing Wednesday so far. I can tell you, unlike yesterday, I finally woke up on time today, even though to most people's standards, especially my age, waking up at 9 a.m. necessarily isn't late, but I don't know. For me, it kind of is. I like being up early in the morning, so I'm getting really sleeping on the weekends anymore, to be honest with you. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm getting old. Who knows? But today is Why Not Wednesday. Today I answer your guys' questions. And again, thank you guys so much for all the support and the questions you guys are firing at. I have so many of them. I could make a couple or at least like a 2-3 hour long video on the questions you guys have, going in full depth and all. I have someone on Instagram, a lot on TikTok. The TikTok has been coming through clutch. I'll tell you that. You guys have just been coming through on that. And it's just been crazy. Again, your guys' support is just so appreciated here. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, let's get right into the video today. So first question, it says, "Hey bro, you've earned a massive follow for me. I love following small content creators, and you know ball too. Head kill. I just want to ask, what is on the line for the Ravens this season? It feels like a lot of pressure." Again, thank you so much for your follow and following small content creators. I've been doing that recently, especially as a small content creator, just starting literally a few weeks ago. It feels good following small content creators. It means a lot. Thank you so much. But what is on the line for the Ravens this season? Well, you're absolutely right. It is a ton of pressure. You could argue this is the most important season in franchise history for the Baltimore Ravens. There's a lot of legacies on the line between just Lamar Jackson alone. Like, take out all the other guys, just between Lamar alone. I mean, he has the opportunity here to be a top 10 quarterback of all time if he wins a Super Bowl. And like, he's still at the point of his career, he can win multiple Super Bowls. I mean, Lamar, honestly, to me, Brady's pretty untouchable at the top spot. That's why I think the whole Mahomes and Brady thing is freaking ridiculous. Because if Lamar had 4 rings, there's no way they consider Lamar Jackson the GOAT. There's just no way. I don't think Lamar, especially at this point in his career, winning no Super Bowls, getting kind of into his later 20s, can necessarily be at the top spot. He has like top 6 quarterback potential of all time, especially if he goes on and gets 2-3 Super Bowls. But instead of looking at that right now, he needs to win 1 Super Bowl and just at least get there. A Super Bowl loss is never a bad thing. Like, I watched Colin Cowherd, he says that, and I completely agree. A Super Bowl loss isn't a bad thing at all. An appearance or anything, people are going to bash you. You're going to lose. Well, he can't even get to a Super Bowl. That's one of the worst things to hear as a Hall of Fame kind of quarterback. He can't even get there. That's like Phillip Rivers. I think Lamar's a lot more talented than Phillip Rivers, but Phillip Rivers, you look at his stats and everything, he's a Hall of Famer. But the whole thing against him is, well, he didn't win anything. He never even got to the Super Bowl. If he would have got to a Super Bowl with the Chargers, it would all be different. I think people would respect him more in the Hall of Fame conversation. But back to the point, really, about the Ravens as a whole, there's a lot of legacies on the line in that organization between Lamar, him being a top, maybe moving into the top 10, especially taking just a leap over Josh Allen in general. That thing won't be there anymore, for now at least. Roquan Smith, who has Hall of Fame potential. In terms of a linebacker, he's one of the greater linebackers of the 2020s and late 2010s. There ain't no doubt about it. He's undoubtedly one of the better linebackers. Derrick Henry, these guys see Canton, by the way. Like Derrick Henry's going to go in Canton anyway, and so is probably DeAndre Hopkins. Lamar, by the end of his career, is going to be undoubtedly get a shot in Canton. Roquan Smith, most likely, but if you get these guys a ring, it's different. Again, D-Hop's legacy. You get him a ring, he's probably going to be first ballot Hall of Famer, just about. Roquan Smith. I mean, you got guys like Kyle Hamilton too. I mean, he's not going to play with Lamar Jackson his whole career. What is he, 4 years younger than Lamar or something like that? He's going to have years, and even that's considering he stays on the Ravens his whole career. Whether he goes somewhere else or whatever, he's not going to have someone like Lamar his whole career. Excuse me. So this is huge for the legacy of the guys on this team. John Harbaugh is one of them. John Harbaugh is seen as an overrated coach, at least in my eyes, and I've heard it from other people, especially living, 20, 25 minutes away from the city. So, again, I'm surrounded by Baltimore fans everywhere, no matter where you go in Maryland you are, but being so close to it, it's just, I think Harbaugh, there's a lot on the line for Harbaugh in general this year. Or if they lose in the divisional round again, he's got to go. This is arguably, to me, has the chance to be one of the best rosters ever. People are kind of downplaying, oh, well, the Eagles have a better roster. I really think the Ravens have one of the best rosters I've seen in a very long time. There's just guys in every unit. Every single unit has guys. Maybe you can argue the receiving group is weaker than a lot of them in their units, but the receiving group is still good. Zay Flowers is a Pro Bowl caliber receiver. D-Hop, while he's not in his prime anymore, is 2 years out of a 1,000-yard season with the Titans and playing with Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis. Again, Rashad Bateman's has finally seemed to broken out to be like a pretty good receiver, like a good receiver. So they have good receivers. That's not a weak group by any stretch. Their tight end group isn't weak at all. Isaiah Likely, who got hurt the other day. I haven't really kept up on that, so I'm going to look that up, but I haven't heard any news of him being out a long time or anything. Mark Andrews, who is a reliable target for the most part, besides in the massive moments, aka the Bills game, Steelers games. I had kind of go on about that, but I'm not. He's still a great tight end. One of the better ones of the 2020s so far, for sure. This is just massive for the Ravens. This feels like the most important year, undoubtedly, for this team. Undoubtedly. Because it's going to get ugly in that building if they don't even get to the Super Bowl this year. If they can at least get there, that's just half the battle. That's the battle they've been fighting is, can Lamar even win playoff games, really? That's half the battle's gone if they can even get there. And they should. You look at their roster, they have the best roster in the AFC to me. I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to find. I don't know. I can't think of the word right now, but again, it's just going to get very ugly. They're gonna be sellers at the trade deadline, or not at the trade deadline, in the off season. That's what I was trying to say. They're going to be sellers, not buyers, and because the Ravens have been buyers the last few years or so. I mean, I don't know. I don't really remember the last time the Ravens were necessarily sellers at the trade or the trade block or in the off season. They're going to be sellers. They're going to offload a lot of their main pieces because it feels almost hopeless in Baltimore if they don't get there this year. To be honest with you, it really kind of feels hopeless. It's like, dude, what else can we even do to get to the Super Bowl? I think one of them is Harbaugh is going to be gone. I think Lamar is going to be pretty upset, like extremely upset. The city's going to be extremely upset. The whole fan base, the players. I think you're going to see the players like Andrews gone. You'll probably see Jair Alexander probably won't get re-signed. While they'll still have pieces, the roster's not going to be as loaded. They're going to offload a lot of these guys. I think one that you could maybe see is maybe like Derrick Henry. I know they extended him, but he's kind of older, especially if he doesn't necessarily have the greatest year to Derrick Henry standards. They might just end up kind of throwing the whole thing. Not necessarily completely just tanking and trading everybody, but they're not going to be what they have been the last couple of years of Juggernaut. It's going to be different in the building. A lot of pointing fingers and everything is just going to get very ugly. So it is a very important year. They need to at least get to the Super Bowl. That's half the battle. They can win it. All those problems go away. And I think they can have a potential shorter dynasty. They could dominate the next 3 years. they'll have the confidence and have it and be able to get to the Super Bowl. So we'll see. Next question. I have one quick question. Do you think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be part of the LSU juggernauts? By LSU juggernauts, I'm assuming Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know if he'll be as good as those two. Like those two were like on good potential status. But he had a great rookie year, and he's a really, really good receiver. And this isn't a bad thing at all. Like those are just 1A and 1B right now. And then you kind of have like CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. I think he's more in the like CeeDee Lamb category, which is still like he had like 1,700 yards or something 2 years ago and like 1,500 this year playing hurt. That is not a bad category. But again, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson just feel like 1A and 1B. Like they still feel a tier over those guys. Like that's how good those two are. But I think Brian Thomas is definitely like a CeeDee Lamb caliber kind of receiver. And that's just still a Hall of Fame caliber receiver. I mean, he's an extremely talented guy. Now, that's not saying he couldn't be a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson at all. Because he has, honestly, I think he has the athleticism and the talent to be in that group. But those two, they just feel different, you know? They really just feel different. Brian Thomas coming out of the draft, last year? Had he's kind of inconsistent. He was a late bloomer in LSU. Apparently, that's what they said on his draft card. And Malik Neighbors, is the same way. I guess you can throw him in the LSU juggernauts. I think he kind of has the potential to be with the Jamar Chase and the Justin Jefferson a little bit. He feels like in that group. Brian Thomas just feels a bit under that group. But he may prove me completely wrong. Maybe he goes for 1,800 yards a season and wins a triple crown with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. He has the potential to do that, though. So it's there. The thing is, though, is that I don't know. I don't know. But he can be part of the great LSU receiving group for sure. Sorry, my phone's going crazy below me for sure because I'm getting a bunch of emails. But he definitely fits the mold to be within the LSU juggernauts. He's going to be with that group of guys, if he isn't already. People talk very highly on Brian Thomas, and respectfully so. He has a lot of expectations coming into this year for him. I still feel like he's underrated. Like I feel like Brian Thomas is still pretty underrated. Like everyone knows he had a really good year last year, especially for a rookie. But he's not necessarily talked about in the upper echelon of receivers. Maybe breaking out with the CeeDee Lambs and stuff. But I think a lot of that, or the reason for a lot of that is, I think it's just his quarterback play. There's a lot of question marks around Trevor Lawrence. Like if Trevor Lawrence plays to his status of being the generational guy, you're going to see Brian Thomas in that upper echelon, and you might see him pushing the Jeffersons and the Chases. Like seriously. But Trevor Lawrence is just the bigger question mark in that equation. We'll see. I hope he does because you're going to see him break out to be maybe a top 3 receiver. Next question. We have, how much longer does Pat Mahomes have? Okay, hold on. It's just kind of worded, kind of strange. How much longer does Pat Mahomes have left in the tank? I can't stand the refs and the Chiefs much longer. I think a lot of people are on that boat. Again, when you're not a fan of a team that's dominating, you hate it. You just hate it. You really do. The Chiefs are dominant right now. They've dominated the 2020 so far. Gotta give them credit, man. They've been different. I'm just going over the question to make sure, or making sure I read it right. That's all. It was just worded a little strange, but it happens. Mahomes is 30 years old? Somewhere around there. He probably has about 5 or 6 years left. I'm not that guy to sit here and say, he's going to play into his 40s like Brady. We've seen how that's happened for especially Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers now. No one is Tom Brady. Nobody. And Patrick Mahomes is a little different because in terms of him just sitting in the pocket and passing, I don't know if he's necessarily like the best quarterback. He is just extremely elusive and just makes crazy plays with crazy arm angles and all. The second he loses that little burst of being able to escape, the pass rusher, the edge, the defensive tackle, whoever's rushing him at the time, he's going to look like a different quarterback. He's going to have to play different. And that's why I think Patrick Mahomes is going to struggle in his late 30s a little bit. Because he's going to have to turn into a pocket passing guy. Again, like that's what's kind of different why, like, even though Manning's arm was kind of falling apart late into his 30s, besides that, I mean, honestly, Manning, if it wasn't for his arm, he could have played forever. I mean, his play style, if his arm would have stayed good, he was never a runner or anything. He didn't rely off crazy arm angles and stuff. The IQ was there. Not necessarily saying that's not there for Mahomes, but he plays different than Breeze and Brady and Manning. That's why he was so special, and he still is. But when he came out of the draft and seeing how he played, it's like, dude, what in the world? I mean, he had comparisons to Brett Favre, and that quickly went away because you're like, okay, wait, this guy is different. Respectfully so, because he is. I mean, he's the greatest quarterback of the 2020s so far, and when most likely will be for the whole time, unless like Allen or Mahomes go on to win like 4 straight or something, then, it'd be different. But I don't think that's going to happen. The thing is the supporting cast around it. I think if they build a good offensive line around Mahomes, and even when he plays into his late 30s, I think he can still be very good. Again, though, he's just not a guy that is sit in the pocket and just throw the ball and just pick apart teams. He's not that guy. He's just very running left to right, kind of running around the tackles. But the second he loses that burst, that's all it takes is that little burst to lose it in the NFL. It gets very hard for you back there. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It's just hard to see him playing that kind of Brady style, just sitting there, just picking apart teams in the pocket. It is. It's a little difficult to see that, especially for him. By the time he gets into his 30s, Andy Reid may not even be there anymore. Kelsey definitely won't. This is Kelsey's last year. So I think, again, it depends on the coach and just the entire situation. No one can predict what's going to happen to the Chiefs 6-7 years from now. Nobody. But it comes quick, though, because, 6 years ago, he won his first Super Bowl against San Francisco. By that time, he'll be 36 years old. 6 years comes fast. So, I hope the Chiefs have some sort of succession plan for Mahomes of some sort, or just to have him last longer on the Chiefs. He's a Kansas City legend. I can't imagine they'll push him out. I mean, he has a part majority of everything. He ends up for the Royals, restaurant, a lot of chain restaurants down there. The dude's just a legend. I doubt they'll push him out of the city at any point, but I'd say just my time range for him is probably about 6 or 7 years. I think he can play until he's about 35 or 36, 37-ish, but I think at that point, especially for a player of his play style, he throws a lot. He throws a lot of deep balls and fast hit balls. His arm may be deteriorated. But luckily for him, he hasn't really had any major injuries to this point. So as long as he stays like that, I think he'll be fine. Next question. God, my phone is going crazy with these notifications right now. It's like insane. It says, "Hey, Matt, seeing you pop up on my YouTube shorts a lot. Good stuff. How do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do with the Steelers this year?" I'm glad I'm popping up on the YouTube shorts, because my YouTube shorts views have been doing amazing, and I'm so glad for that. Like, seriously. A lot of interaction on them, too. I love it. Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers, see, it's kind of strange because it feels like he has no pressure on him. Although he does. He's playing for the Steelers. You have a lot of pressure playing on Pittsburgh just because of the organization in general, like the fan base. They put a lot of pressure into winning. respectfully so. I mean, they haven't had a losing season, it feels like forever. I mean, it's been a very long time, especially under Tomlin. They've never had one. He's been there a while. So there is pressure on him. But for him, I mean, he's a guy who probably just doesn't really care. I mean, you see him, he's had bounds and bounds of pressure on him his whole career, especially in Green Bay. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. So, especially off of being the Jets and all, or not being on the Jets anymore, it feels like he probably feels very relieved of having to just not be there anymore. And I see it. He looks loose throwing the ball in training camp, which is a good thing. But at the same time, in games, you don't necessarily want him throwing like loose and throwing the ball all over the place. So again, there's a lot of expectations for the Steelers this year. It feels like there's people who are very high on the Steelers, and then there's people who are very low and think they're going to be drafting high. I think, again, they're going to be where they've been at for years now, in the middle round, 9 wins, 10 wins. I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to have his first losing season. The defense is extremely talented. Their defense is hard-hitting defense. Those guys are everywhere. The defense like that under Mike Tomlin is going to win you at least six or 7 games. And then just having Aaron Rodgers may not be what he was 3-4 years ago, when he won his MVP. But he's still, I mean, his last 8 weeks with the Jets, he was actually pretty good. Like Aaron Rodgers was good at the end for the end of the season for the Jets last year. He was. So I think he'll actually be pretty good. There's rumors of them getting Terry McLaurin. So if they do that, paired with DK Metcalf, I think the Steelers are going to actually be sneakily dangerous. I think people are going to take them serious, of course, but I think they're going to be a lot better than people think if they end up doing something like that. I like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, the running back they drafted. Jalen Warren, they still have him. So I think they have a decent running back room. We'll see. I think, again, Aaron Rodgers is kind of a statue in the pocket now. He used to kind of be, I don't know, maybe Mahomes-ish, to where he just break out, make some crazy deep throw. He didn't necessarily have all the crazy arm angles, or maybe he did a little bit, but, he's just kind of a statue back there. And it's kind of what Brady and those guys turned into in their 40s. If they get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, it's not going to be good for the Steelers. So that offensive line has to hold up. And that's kind of what they didn't do last year. Even with an older Russell Wilson, he moves better than Aaron Rodgers does now. I mean, there's no doubt about that, even though he doesn't move as well. But he definitely moves better. So, again, Aaron Rodgers, I think, is going to have a good year. I think he's just going to be out there kind of loose, just kind of gunslinging it, to be honest with you. And if you're the Steelers, you kind of want that. I remember when they had Pickett and Rudolph and Trubisky a few years ago. They were like, God, we just stop throwing the ball 5 yards in front of you and throw the ball down the field. Rodgers is going to do that. And he's loose. He's a gunslinger. He's just going to throw the ball, especially at this point in his career. So that could turn out to be good or really bad for him. I think he'll be good. Again, I think he's going to ride off into the sunset with 24, 25 touchdowns and 9 picks. That's what I have for Aaron Rodgers this year. So I think he'll be good, but he's not going to be what he was a few years ago. And last question today. Fine, through these today now. Do you think OKC has dynasty potential? The signing of SGA, Chet, Jalen Williams worry me just a tad because they took up a lot of cap space. Curious to hear your thoughts. But I think they definitely have dynasty potential. I mean, the only thing that worries me, along with you, is that those 3 alone almost take up $1 billion in cap space. I think that's a lot for Chet Holmgren. I do like the Jalen Williams signing. Him and SGA is a great one, too. But Chet's extremely inconsistent. Chet's a great defender. But offensively, I guess if you feel, you have SGA, Jalen Williams handling the rock, you don't necessarily need Chet to have the ball that much. But having a third option is not a bad thing. Having a third option is a good thing because that's a lot of pressure on those two. And Chet is extremely inconsistent on offense. Extremely. They paid him a lot of money for a guy who blocks the ball. And he needs to put a lot more weight on his frame. Again, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if he necessarily wants to. He's been in the league a couple of years now, and he hasn't yet. Again, if he does, I think it'll be good for him. Again, he kind of seems like he just goes, he gets the ball, he shoots a three. You know, Chet doesn't necessarily have a bad, you know, I remember the whole comparison with him and Wemby a few years ago. That just looks ridiculous now. Even though, I know Chet just won the NBA Finals, but, and he was a part of it. But that was more SGA and Jalen Williams. Again, he just feels very inconsistent to pay a player over $200 million. That's just a little ridiculous to me. I like the Jalen Williams and the SGA. That's a lot of money for two players, but they deserve it. They just won an NBA championship. They won OKC their first finals, and respectfully so. Those two, SGA had one of the greater seasons for an athlete in a long time. You could probably say historically he's up there with those guys for one of the greatest seasons for a player ever. One of the things OKC had, and that they're going to lose hard. You're going to notice it. Players like Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso. I even like players like Isaiah Joe. Kason Wallace. Those guys are important. And when you're paying three guys that much money, those guys dwindle away. And that's what happens to teams like, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Like the Brooklyn Nets. It was Harden, it was KD, and it was Kyrie. You had an older Blake Griffin. They went inside LaMarcus Aldridge, but they had nothing on their bench. They had nobody on that bench at all. That's what happens when you pay guys all that money. The Carusos, the Hartensteins, those guys start dwindling away. They go to other teams because you can't afford to pay them. And Caruso was massive in the playoffs for the Thunder. When they were in Game 7 against Denver, and he had that steal on Jokic, I mean, he was clamping guys left and right, clutch steals, taking the momentum out of the other team. You lose that. I mean, imagine Caruso wasn't on the Thunder this year. Maybe they end up losing in 7 to the Nuggets or less. Or, or again, they lose to the Pacers. I mean, he makes massive plays. Hartenstein the same way. He grabs that clutch offensive rebound that gets you that second chance three or that second chance and one or free throws or whatever it is. You lose that element when you're paying Chet $200 million and you need Chet to be on the floor for 30 minutes a night, for 40 minutes a night, because you don't have that guy out there. Although what's weird with OKC though, is that they had just so many first round picks still. I mean, what they've really built there, and just mainly from the LA Clippers alone, to be honest with you, has just been insurmountable. I mean, good for them, man. Good for them. They have really made that organization into something special there in OKC. So again, they have dynasty potential. They're at least going to have that roster again next year. But over the next couple of years is when, are these guys they drafted with those first round picks, are they going to be able to replace Caruso and Hartenstein and guys like that? And then Lou Dort. I mean, they're probably going to end up losing Lou Dort, to be honest with you. They are. At some point, they're going to end up losing him. So can they replace those guys? We'll see. If they can do it, the dynasty will keep on rolling. And again, they're just starting right now. I think they have the potential to go back to back, especially with Shea in his prime. So we'll see. Again, got to hit on those draft picks. They have to. They don't have a choice because they're not going to be able to bring guys in free agency, especially with the way contracts are going now. Paying three guys almost $1 billion, it's hard in the NBA to bring other guys in. You're just not going to be able to. So that is it for today's Why Not Wednesday. Again, thank you guys so much for all the questions and everything. I think I'm gonna start doing more questions and more videos throughout the week. Maybe tomorrow I'll throw in a couple Fridays, stuff like that. I'll throw in some questions. And I have a ton of them in my inbox, TikTok, Instagram, all that. You guys are just amazing. Thank you guys so much for all the support. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. And I have some pretty interesting topics tomorrow. So yeah, everyone have a great day and I'll see you guys tomorrow.